Incense burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddhas smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas.
Reminder of the master, so your teacher, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The four gems are the master, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In this particular text, the Sangha usually refers to the noble members of the order of Buddhist monks and nuns who are on one of the four stages of the supramundane path. A broader meaning, and the one that we hold here is for Sangha, is given towards the end of the book, and that's all of us. It's all of us. And there's no separation in Heartwood around it in terms of the learning. Yeah. But it really is, we're all doing the same thing and at different levels. That is critical to understand. So I want you to look at your life, your cultivation, your understanding, where you are today, and how you sit with the gem and the teacher. And I might add, the teacher is our teacher, venerable, it's Buddha Master. It's also us. It's also us. Not at the master level, but certainly as teachers to one another. Just take a minute to sit with this. And in particular, I want you to consider, and I invite you to share out what that cultivation, how you step this out, how you walk it out. We're constantly, I'm at least constantly asking you to really consider that. Consider how you step out, how you live with the triple gem or the four gems. A sincere heart, he says, how you're cultivating it. So a reminder that he's saying, of all the thousands of cultivators, it is difficult to find even one who has control over life and death. And the reason for that is they've not followed a true master, incarnation of a Buddha or Bodhisattva. Here in the West, we seldom hear about the incarnations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So that alone becomes foreign thought, a foreign knowledge. What do you mean? Following a Buddha or Bodhisattva. And of course, they come in different forms, but they also can arrive in the form of this human body. They have decided to come back in this human form. So how are you trying to avoid this place of not being able to really to learn it, but not step into it? How do you catch yourself when you find yourself bearing off, or as Venerable would say, vectoring off the understanding of this? Where does it show up for you? How does it appear to you? And I think, is the microphone over here? Okay. So when you're ready to share, you can grab the mic and just share out today.
Testing.
There we go.
I think at the most basic level, I know that I've taken a side rail. I get sensations in my body, specifically around the mid back. And it's just a signal to me. I mean, an emotion, a discomfort goes along with that also. And I might not always be able to pick it out right away, but there's something that where I'm out of sync is the message. And so it's time to pause, breathe, and be open. What am I missing here?
And when you get underneath that next layer, I mean, for me, I too get a gut feeling. And then if I miss it, it comes up and then up and then up. And I know I've shared that with folks here. But then I ask myself, what's this? What's this? And it goes basically to the triple gem, that I've lost my way as recent as yesterday. As recent as yesterday. I could say even as recent as this morning, but I haven't quite gotten that signal yet. And I gratefully had a Sangha member that could kind of hold that space until I got my bearings again. But I had to stop. And it took me a little bit, and then it was like, oh, there it is. And what do I need to do then? And then to be able to, and luckily, my Sangha member was able to not take it on. And that's what we're here for, to support each other when those moments arise, that we have that connection with each other. And it's built on relationships and connections and time. That we can say, hey, I went off a little bit. But I knew it, but I just wasn't sure where to go. And then I landed with a little bit of the Dharma and a lot about the Sangha. And I was so grateful for that. Yesterday, about 12:08, I think it probably was. Yeah. Others, thank you, Jim. I think it's really important. I always emphasize the visceral feeling that comes, because that very frequently is the first sign. And if we miss it, it comes even stronger and bigger. And Nancy.
Like you, usually visceral fear last night. It went quickly from here to kind of a frown and a meeting place. And what caught me was like, why do you have aversion?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go, oh, that's not the path, and it was a pattern, and it was a preference, and it wasn't someone needed compassion. And it took me, I had to take a breath and make a decision to not have aversion and to give what the person needed. But, I'm not to the point where it doesn't come up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Takes a lot of practice. And it's like, as I say, building a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger you get. The stronger you get.
I think sometimes I do feel it in my body, but sometimes in addition to, there'll be visceral reactions to things that happen with people and situations. Sometimes I find myself going through, patterns, cycles of old behavior, old ways of thinking. So how do I know? Like, honestly, it's the quality of my thoughts. what's popping off in there. And not just what's popping, how fast are they popping? What place in myself are they actually coming from? And how caught am I in the illusion of thinking this is the only way, right? And like if you step, when you talked about stepping below it or sitting with it or unseating it, a lot of times, honestly, there's just it's that trap of doubt, you know, just sitting below everything. And to come back to the triple gem or the quadruple gem, like it is. I mean, it's faith that we can be more, do more, step into the highest, even when we don't feel like it, and sinking into the person that feels like they don't like. And sometimes this isn't always like a beautiful thing. Sometimes it feels really crappy, you know, and there's like layers of tenderness and erroneous beliefs and just habitual ways that we've related to ourselves and to reality, you know. I've been thinking a lot. We talk about samsara just as like this kind of endless cycling through conditioned existence, and it is that, you know, but it's also like this sort of holographic pattern of behavior and thinking and acting and speaking that sometimes we can become so entrenched in. So I think we just have to pay attention and be willing to look and to face the discomfort that comes up. Sometimes it's just not comfortable.
How do you pay attention? How does that work for you, Rob?
I mean, for me, there's the paying attention in terms of, it's sort of a multi-layered approach. One is like, I have to carve space out of my day to actually sit with myself, right? And sometimes that's on a macro level, like, hey, can you sit for 45 minutes? And sometimes it's just like, you know, stepping off of what I'm doing at work for a minute just to catch yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's how deeply I see the intention of who I want to be that day. And paying attention is looking like, is this happening? Is my reaction to this in line with that intention?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about how we capture ourselves in the moment. And some things we all have, maybe our little tricks that we use. I've, of course, shared mine threshold moment where when I come through the door, I take it in. I take a moment, I check myself. It's, you know, a watch that maybe goes off, or a phone that there's, I think, yeah, she has a really nice sounding bell. And I'm like, oh. But for us to know what it is that can help us, and sometimes we get used to it, so maybe we need to choose another one, but we can't be intentional unless we set the intention. And so it's setting the intention perhaps before you even get out of bed in the morning. How do I want to be today? And then to be able to take those moments, those pauses throughout the day, and be able to check in and say, how am I doing? Is it still there? Or, you know what, some things have happened, like for me yesterday. I think I need to change my intention. Midstream churn a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, I got to do something a little different here. And how did I get there was another question. How did I get? Well, I saw it was all the way up till noon. And I felt it, but I thought I could overcome it. I felt it coming. I thought I could get beyond it. And it just kept layering up. And then being able to find it, a place to lay it out there. And hoping and knowing that that particular person is going to be able to hold space for you. Hold space. And it could be a partner, it could be a friend, it could be just raising your hand and saying, I need some help. Sometimes I come in and talk to Deepa. I need you today. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, my friend someplace where called New York City. And,
Is that on? Sorry, John.
okay, so my friend's in a place called New York City, and she's doing whatever she's doing. And I asked her, how did your day go? And I get a text, and my friend was with a friend. The friend offers her a ride back to where she's staying. She says no, gets on a bus. For some reason, a car or truck goes in front of the bus. The bus slams on the brakes, and it's chaos inside the bus, meaning my friend's hurt. Not badly, but she's hurt. And she was able to get back to, they had to get off the bus because for some reason the driver couldn't continue with the bus. And now she sends a message that she has some shoulders, she's banged up, she's taking some medicine, and then she's going to go to bed. So it took space for me to find out that my friend's hurt. There's nothing I can do about it. And it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we work with the different levels of hurt? And, you know, I grew up just shake it off, get back and just, you know, maybe not pay attention to it, but if you're good enough, you keep going forward. And then it works, you know, because it's sort of what we're demanded of, to just keep moving forward. But the reality is you got something that's hurt in your body. And the ability to pay attention and do something with it is very important, because you're going to be carrying it and storing it. So, you know, going from the God created events for this person to be in an accident causing hurt. And you could say, well, there were some reasons, because she didn't take her friend's offer. The car just happened to go in front of the bus. The bus driver did this. And
Right.
there's some analysis on that level.
You could do that, yeah.
But the satisfaction isn't necessarily there on the level that is in contact with the moment. And how do we, for others and ourselves, alleviate hurt in a timely manner?
Okay, so that's the question. Okay. Thoughts about what I understand is how, and you can let me know if this is, when someone else has been hurt physically, emotionally, how do I help support that? Is that accurate? How do I engage with that?
Yeah, there's an unknowingness and then a knowingness. And then I don't want to be wished. There's an unknownness because you're not sure you have the efficacy, because that does take, it's in the moment, but does take a little time to work its way into the person or the situation.
Okay. Any comments? Nancy?
I think what, in my experience, has been to be supportive is just to encourage self-care for the person, especially when you're New York and North Carolina. And, flowers are always nice. But I do think that most of us have, in our culture, are not taught about self-care. And really, many, in my experience as a PT, don't really know their bodies, don't understand how they work and how they heal, and how important the attitude and emotional health is to the physical recovery of something. And they're not separate at all. And so I think that it's important not to have any expectations of a timetable, but just faith that given self-care and doing the right work, following through, knowing you're worth going to therapy or going and receiving the support you need, you're worth it, is really important. And many of us put a lot of other things ahead of that. But this is the only vessel we get. And timing is kind of critical on when we do that self-care, whether it ever recovers fully, in my experience.
I also think, thank you for that. I grew up in a household that was just walk it off. And so when there's someone that we're with, a friend, a partner, I had to learn that not everybody just walks it off. They've got their own package that they're working with. But also, what here is my role and what's their role? And to really look at, in terms of our Buddhist practice, what is it that we're here? What are we here to do? We're here to support, to learn, to grow ourselves so that we can be of benefit to others. But I just think it's ongoing that we check ourselves. Are they asking for help in the first place? Right? Or am I just telling you something? And then the second thing is, if they're asking for help, to be able to ask, well, what are you really needing right now at this time? I just need to go to bed and take an aspirin. Okay. I hope you rest, and not take it on, It's not yours. And to be able to provide comfort and support and be able to be there for them is one thing, but to then start clinging to that role, to grasp, to be responsible at some level, it's not ours. It's not ours. Robbie, you're going to say something?
Honestly, what I heard in that is this notion of like white knuckling it or brass knuckling it. What I heard is some place within oneself that needs to open to vulnerability in order to be able to hold the space of that for somebody else. And particularly in the realms of emotional support and healing, as somebody who's married and always wants to solve my wife's problems, like that doesn't work. She's just like, I just need a hug. I just need you to listen. And it's, in my experience, it's more about what I'm willing to drop and allow to show up than it is how I think I can solve a problem. And some of this is unlearning the way that we were conditioned as youth, adults, whatever. Particularly like, I grew up in an alcoholic family where like sweeping it under the rug was like a PhD program we went through. And but these things fester. They internalize, they get stuck in the tissues, and it's actually the space that we allow that brings in the washing and the purification. I think it's imminent in that. I think it's about how we hold the space for ourselves and then for others. Do you want to say something?
So as I was listening to this beautiful Sangha, I tend to be one that is an auditory signaled individual. So when I start picking up other words that other people are saying, I then start forming cognitions that I hope are in line with the Buddha Dharma and the four gems. Because that's what I'm really maintaining, is a sense of what is coming together and meets with the correspondence of what I've learned. What I learned originally when I came here to Heartwood was the three gems, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I haven't learned the master one just yet. I'm working on that one. But the sincerity of all of that. And I do remember going through periods of feeling very false about the way I was corresponding with the Dharma that I was learning, with the way that I was interacting with people, because I was using too much intellectual space during that period of time, which was fine at one level, but analyzing everything to within an error was really hurtful in so many ways. So many ways. But the process taught me something and really helped me to develop that sincere heart, which I think is really at the bottom of a lot of what I go into. What the hell am I doing here? Because this is a spiritual teaching ground. This is not just a place that I come, and I love to spend time in the community, and I love to be around the people here. That was my original intention of coming here when I decided to move. But having to be questioned about, really, do I want a spiritual practice? And in a Buddhist container, that is really the whole point. And if I don't, then I need to find someplace else to go. And I kept coming back to that and kept coming back to that, because if not, then it's not the right faith. And that was really an eye-opener for me. So that's a hard alignment to sometimes maintain, because it asks a lot. It asks a lot of me as a practitioner. But every time I come back to it, and Panawati said, you'll come back to it. Bless her heart. I did.
So we just spent some time looking at what gets in our way. And then we get to practice so that those obstacles don't show up as often or aren't as high. And so I'm going to just continue here. We ended with, he's talking about the four gems and a sincere heart. In other words, they are cultivating themselves in a false manner. So we're talking about how to cultivate ourselves in a way that's true to the four gems, true to the Buddha Dharma. By not being true, by being engaged in a false manner, you'll not be able to attain liberation, nor will they be able to obtain blessing and wisdom. It will be impossible for them to end the cycle of birth and death. And then he goes on to talk to, there are only two types of situations. If one learns the true Buddha Dharma, and if one lives loyally in accordance with the Dharma and with one's three karmas and corresponding with the teachings of the master, then one will naturally receive unlimited blessings. Ending the cycle of birth and death will be close at hand and as easy as turning over one's hand. It will be so easy. But to get to that point of turning the hand over, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And it becomes work, especially when we're not paying attention, because the suffering shows up in lots of ways. Absolutely. Jim, can you read that paragraph? bottom of page 31.
There are only these two types of situations. If one learns the true Buddha Dharma, and if one lives loyally in accordance with the Dharma, and with one's three karmas corresponding with the teachings of the Master, then one will naturally receive unlimited blessings. Ending the cycle of birth and death will be close at hand and as easy as turning over one's hand. It will be so easy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I just let that sink in a little bit. And where we go sideways with it. And how we get back on track. Busita, can you read the, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is very helpful. But one of the things that I realized that is that in the midst of something that whether I need to be in my highest or I'm off and need to go back, the way I get there is I have to relax. And that's, I realize I don't get clarity and know how to return or not lose. I don't lose my way if I can relax. So I'm not responding to all the stimuli in a reactive way. And I'm realizing, they're just emotions, but really it's only when I'm relaxed that I have clarity of how to do it.
How does a lotus grow? In mud, right? And with the pond, when it's stirred up, we can't see the bottom. And these are just easy metaphors, but how true. And the moment that lake or that pond settles, you get some clarity. So stopping, relaxing, a deep breath into the belly, going for a walk. I mean, there's numerous ways to do it if we stop. If we stop. Yesterday, I was next step, next step, next step. I need to get to the gym. I got to the gym. I sat down and I started bicycling. And there it was. And there it was. So we need to know our ways of being able to take that space, whether it's resting, going to bed, sitting in a corner, sitting out yesterday afternoon. Yeshi and I sat out in the sun a little bit because vitamin D, it felt so nice. We need to know ourselves to be able to take the next step. Yeah. Go exploring. Okay.
Now then, what is meant by devotion to the four gems? It means the four states of corresponding. That is, one should perfect the four states of corresponding. What are the four states of corresponding? The four states of corresponding are as follows. First, one must be wholeheartedly loyal to the four gems. Second, this loyalty must never change. Third, no other person should be placed above the master and the three gems. And fourth, one must attain the level of 100% devotion.
Let's sit there with that for a minute. Jim, can you read that again? It's always nice to hear a different voice.
Now then, what is meant by devotion to the four gems? It means the four states of corresponding. That is, one should perfect the four states of corresponding. What are the four states of corresponding? The four states of corresponding are as follows. First, one must be wholeheartedly loyal to the four gems. Second, this loyalty must never change. Third, No other person should be placed above the master and the three gems. Fourth, one must attain the level of 100% devotion.
That doesn't always come right away.
You think?
I state the obvious. I state the obvious. You know, it took me years of backpacking with Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, nice little thin book before I thought, wow, this is really speaking to me. First of all, it was just a book that I liked, that Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, because the thought of Beginner's Mind gave me great relief that I could just begin again. In fact, just a quick story, when I was down at Upaya for my Buddhist chaplaincy, and we spent the first day, very first day, to go to service, Zen service, which is a lot of standing, bowing, turning, standing, bowing. And it was like being in a dance class, line dancing, because I'd go the wrong way and I'd be facing somebody, I was supposed to be facing the other way, and I wasn't turning around, and I get somebody tapping my shoulders, I turn around and I realized I wasn't the only one. And so that evening, our first meeting, our first gathering as chaplain students, we were talking and someone said, can you please teach us the forms? Because it was frustrating. And we were watching, what do we do now? Where are we going? Down, up, down. And just then Roshi Joan Halifax, who was the director and in charge, walked in, and the program director said, Roshi, could you join us? She said, sure. And I was sitting in a chair. I didn't know Roshi then. And she sat right on the arm of the chair I was sitting in. I was looking at her. And the director said, can you ask the question again? And can you teach us the forms? Without even taking a breath, she said, no. No. Right now, you're in beginner's mind. And it's the time that you will really pay attention and learn and watch. And it's the best growth period you will have. If I teach you, then I'm teaching you. But if you watch and practice and pay attention to your cohort and to those that know what they're doing, you will learn differently. And your learning will last longer. And I was looking at her going, okay. But truly, that was the first best lesson in my Buddhist training. I read plenty of books, but learning to watch, being quiet, paying attention was the best learning. It's the best learning. So he speaks to 4 states of corresponding and their practice wholeheartedly. If I'm doing it half-assed, well, I have to stop myself and say, why am I even doing it? When we talk about, I'm going to sit, but I'm just zooming all over the place. I'm not going to sit right now. I want to be wholeheartedly in my practice. I want to be wholeheartedly with you when we talk. I want to be wholeheartedly in my practice around here, in my shopping, being present. And that takes time and practice and work. Second, the loyalty piece. It's sort of, to me, I would call loyalty something different. My commitment to, my desire for having that guidance from the triple gem or the 4 gems, having my teacher that I know on Friday morning I was needing to talk to my teacher, and I called and she answered. Being able to know that we can have someone we can go to my master. I'm learning more about the Buddha master and being able to open up to that. A lot of people have God, or, you know, in the Christian world, a different divine, however you want to call it. Really believing that. "100% devotion." To me, that's practice. This is really important. And that I do carve out time. And even if I can't sit on the Zafu and Zabatan, maybe I sit in my car for a few minutes before I get out or when I get in. Maybe I go for that walk. Maybe I sit in the sun for a minute. But that I know that that is important. I've been noticing these incredible trees and the leaves and paying attention to these leaves. It's like, wow, these are amazing. And Yashi looked up, we were talking about them. How do they get these colors? And she looked it up, thank God for Google. And it was like, oh, I knew that, but I had to be reminded. And so now I look at the leaves and how they got to where they are, having fallen and just laying there. And that's our life now. Every piece, every step. Yes.
With what we were talking about this morning with Venerable, about just reading this paragraph wholeheartedly, loyalty, even 100% devotion. And basically how she reminded us that everything is a spiritual practice. And when you give all of yourself to everything that you're doing, that you will receive that as well. And so everything will come to life. And so it's about it's about everything that you do. That's 100%. So vacuuming, cleaning, how you fold your clothes, when you wake up in the morning, all of it. That was something that she reminded of us today. So level of 100%.
Thank you. Cutting carrots. Somehow when I would go down to Upaya, it was 2 years, 4 weeks or more, and I always got on cutting vegetables. And then doing some other kind of work, toilet work. But, just cutting, when you're cutting, Tai says, when you're cutting, cut. And then when the food would be passed, I was like, oh, those are my carrots. They look great. I did that to really appreciate it.
Yeah, the 100% devotion happens in moments for me.
Mhm.
But I notice those moments, and that's what's I don't live a full life of 100% devotion all the time. But when I do, those moments are special, and they'll help me stay on the path.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. You want to continue reading? At least it's all on one side.
I also just want to, if you go all in, you'll receive unlimited blessings, and ending the cycle of birth and death will be as easy as turning over the palm of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So it really makes you stop and think, is this little habit more important? That's the no other person should be placed above the master and the 3 gems. What am I doing right now? Am I scrolling on my phone or whatever it is? Is this going to end the cycle of birth and death? Can I just commit? Can I really go all in? If I do, it could be that easy. Knowing that, gives you so much, I mean, that's something to really sit with, isn't it? To really sit with that and let that sink in. Like, once you really feel that, it gives you something, it gives you some strength and will to take a bigger step forward.
Well, I think your point is so important, is being able to catch ourselves and say, is this desire, this wish, this longing, this car, this whatever, is this worth that? I mean, to put it in that context, is having all these items, these things, is it worth that distraction? I mean, it's really a powerful question.
I've been struggling with something lately that I need to let go of, and in order to sort of step into a different version of myself. And sometimes when life is bridging us towards change, when the ground that is always unstable beneath our feet starts to flutter a little faster than we like, I find that this is the time when we see where our devotion is really at. You can't train for a fight in a fight. I know that's a poor analogy, but in this essence of like giving oneself fully, Gampopa talks about devotion having three aspects. Inspiration, meaning like one has to really be inspired by that fourth gem, the teacher, the whole path that follows back, and then knowing with certainty that, like Pusita said, like there is a way out, there is a freedom, a space, and then actually the third part of it is the aspiration to actually walk it out, even when the ground beneath our feet feels unstable and unshaky, and the Dharma, which is always asking us to step into some new version of ourselves, feels scary, and we feel the part of ourselves that wants to contract and move backwards. I find it's the amount of devotion that we put into our practice and our life that can rise up in that moment. And that is, it's like, am I scrolling on my phone? I'm like, watching werewolf shows, or like, am I reading Dharma? Am I listening to talks on the way to work? Am I really trying to live it? The classical analogy that they use for devotion is that if you bring lack of devotion with devotion, it's like putting ashes on it's like putting flour on top of hot ashes. Like, it's just going to cinder. And, lately I've been reading that sutta number 29, which is the heartwood of the Bodhi tree, because I've been reflecting on this chapter of heartwood's essence or existence sort of coming apart, and what that means for me and my practice and stuff. And so I've been reading that sutta, and the Buddha sort of goes through, when someone's seeking the heartwood, how they can kind of erroneously go for the inner bark, the outer bark, the sap, this, that. And then he talks about all the things one has to perfect in order to get there, like concentration, virtue. But in the end, he says one even has to go beyond that and really deepen into the mind of liberation. That is the whole goal of the past. And honestly, I feel like what Busita was talking about, like really surrendering into that as the guiding principle of your life and being fully devoted to that, like, and then using these four sort of streams to get there. It's beyond the level of devotion that I'm currently at. And honestly, if I'm really honest with myself, I can see mostly where I get in trouble is from sending the universe mixed messages, you know, wanting worldly things and truth and not knowing how to stand in the face of all those complexities.
Well, I think that's the the ultimate question is, how do I want to be in the world? How you get there and what devotion looks like. It could look moment by moment. It could look vaster. It could be in so many ways. But it's, I mean, wholeheartedly, whatever it is, wholeheartedly. Give it your best shot. Your very, very best shot. Because the end result is getting out of this life and death and life and death cycle.
And honestly, when you read those 4 states of corresponding, like the third one about wholeheartedly surrendering to a master, it's so against the grain of our Western individualistic thinking that wants to be able to kind of piecemeal together what feels comfortable to us. And then on the other side of that is like how sort of fortunate we are to know someone who's really living their life into that intention of really searching for the heartwood of the Bodhi tree. It's a really rare thing. And it's not really comfortable to be friends with somebody like that. I mean, it's beautiful and it's profound, but it's definitely not comfortable.
It definitely isn't comfortable at times. And then it's so wonderful at other times. We have reached the end of our hour and we haven't. Oh, Santi, you're there. Hi. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, hello, dear Sangha. I was thinking as we were reading and I was listening to the conversation, and then also looking at my experience just in the 24 hours that I've been gone. I'm aware that there are people who, one, may not have the karma for, their minds to even wrap around the idea of something beyond a sort of healing that the world promises through certain things. Like there's some people who talk therapy might be the rest of their lives, or, and this is not in a less than way. It's just like looking like there are stages to things, like I know if I didn't go to talk therapy first, I would not be able to even be thinking about completely overcoming attachment to my sense gates, right? But just to hear the conversation that we're having right now, to know that we can even allow the mind to expand to that point makes it more of a possibility. And just in the few conversations I've had over the past 24 hours, I'm aware of how I have to watch how far I can talk about some things, because it might be harmful, it might be damaging to someone who hasn't expanded their minds to even think past what they are ready for in that moment. And so as I'm listening to us talk, I'm just so, I appreciate the fact that we can even talk. We're talking about like ending life, the cycle of death and birth. You know what I mean? Like that to me, to even be able to have a Sangha that we can communicate and talk into this way is so major and so necessary. And so just listen to the conversation and this reading today, and just being in the place that I'm in right now, I feel an immense gratitude. It's like I feel even more grateful than when I was there to be able to have encountered this Dharma, and to also have people who are willing to have these, that have expanded their mind to a place that you can even have these conversations. So that's all.
Thank you, Santi.
Mhm.
So with that, I'm going to bring our time to a close, and I want to reiterate that it is incredible that we can come together as a mandala and be with each other, whether it's online or here, and open up and really explore these things and be honest with ourselves and with each other about our journey. So I'm so grateful, and we have a ways to go just in this transmission. But so far, we've just really highlighted many, many wonderful things. So let's close with, by the power of this compassionate practice, may suffering be transformed into peace. May the hearts of all beings be open and their wisdom radiate from within. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for coming today.